I think we need the church in Iran, and the church in the Middle East needs to think about empowering women and even giving them leadership roles, leadership titles, and allowing them to go in and open new doors that haven't been opened before. When we allow women to fully, participate and fully use their gifting, you'll see they are the Ezer.
Hello and welcome to Unmuted. I'm Edwin Keshish-Abnous, and today I am honored to have a very special guest whose life and work are at the crossroads of faith, media, women's leadership, and transformational storytelling. Shirin Tabor is my guest. Shirin started Empower Women Media, an international multi-faith network that helps women leaders tell their stories and make media for their missions. She's an Iranian American with a Muslim father from Iran and an American Christian mother. She has lived in the United States, Europe, and Middle East. She has worked with the United Nations, faith-based and non-religious NGOs, and social impact media makers to teach women how to tell stories, heal from trauma, build peace, and fight for religious freedom. What makes Shirin's point of view so important to our discussion is that she strongly believes that stories can change culture and empower women to be agents of change, especially when they are in the situation of constraints and oppression. She teaches women how to use the media to gain power, lead, and keep their dignity. So get ready to be challenged and inspired, whether you're listening from a studio, a dorm room, a church office, or your own home. Shirin, you've seen how stories can change people's mind and whole countries. What moment in your own faith, the journey you've been through, made you sure that this was your calling, to empower women through storytelling?
Yes. Well, a lot of my work is grounded in research and data and looking at the power of storytelling over the ages. And so you can look at the power of storytelling in history and through the Bible, biblical stories and the impact they have, parables. But more recently, there has been quite a bit of research that has shown that if you are committed to shifting the culture and norms and how people are viewed, especially human rights or women's rights, storytelling, short format storytelling is actually the most effective way. And it's not just a hunch I have, it's based on research and what we're seeing.
And do you think seems like Iranians are very much interested in storytelling? We have a lot of literatures, we got a lot of poems, and every time when I tune into Iranian TV, even the national TV, I see that is the main content that Iranians are producing. So I assume, do you get a better feedback with Iranians, or what is your experience specific? Because I know you work with many different regions.
Yes.
What is your specific experience with Iranians when it comes to storytelling, especially women?
Yeah, no, they get it. I mean, you think about even a woman or a mother, the last thing your child asks you for before they go to bed is, Mom, can you tell me a story? Or if you use a story, you can make a case for something. So if you're trying to train your child, educate your child, even with a friend or neighbor, and you're having conflict, if you can somehow tell your own story, then it helps people to receive other ideas, especially issues that are difficult to discuss, like religious persecution or women's rights. Those are difficult, taboo subjects, but if you can weave in a story, yes, it helps.
And do you think, because you are particularly focusing on women, and do you find women a little bit more inclined in not only leading in their families, in the society, but also being able to convey the message of that story to their society?
Yeah, I think more and more we're seeing the power of women storytellers. I mean, even in Hollywood, you're seeing that more and more women producers, directors, script writers are being enlisted. A lot of storylines now have women as the hero. Whereas, historically it was just the male. Also, when I was younger, we were told that films, a script would never sell if it had a strong female lead or a female storyteller, and that has changed. And so what we're seeing now is that women actually have the power to share messages and to share content in ways that we had never seen before. Even major companies, CEOs are now becoming women. Prime ministers, presidents are becoming women around the world.
Yes.
There's something about women communicating that's more maybe easier to listen to, a little easier on the heart, whereas
Right.
maybe in the past it was harder to accept those messages from men. We still need men. We need you. But I think there's a new era where
Yes.
women are able to share in new ways.
It connects to the heart, right? It's a data and I don't want to say logic because women I think are a lot more logical than men, but it connects to the heart. It has the emotion. It touches you to the core. So what are the most common social and legal and technological barriers that Iranian women face when they try to become leaders? Which one do you think needs to be dealt with right away?
Yeah, this is such a good question and one we deal with regularly. And actually, I've spoken to major businesses about this issue of like, why are women not in the boardroom? Why are women not making important decisions, legally or financially? And unfortunately, in the Middle East, it's very much women are still seen through a lens of religion, and they're
Yes.
seen through perhaps older views of how religion was interpreted, and they're not in these societies have not caught up yet. They don't realize that women have very high level of education, they have economic empowerment. Men and women are different. We will never say that men are the same as women, but we bring something different, as you said: compassion, humanity. We're able to see things from a human perspective. And so, yeah, those reforms need to happen. They are happening, like in the UAE and some countries, we're seeing that. But Iran, because of the Islamic regime,
Right.
we're behind, right? But women are still so powerful inside Iran.
But do you think, Shirin, when you say let me ask you a question, get a better insight into this. You mentioned their view is different on women. Is this because of the effect of a religion, or this is a cultural issue in that region?
No, I would say it's top down. So religion impacts how people view the world, the lens they see through. So
Yes.
even if you're a Christian living inside Iran or the Muslim world, you could be a Christian in Egypt, a Christian in Jordan, a Christian in Lebanon, but you've been affected by the Islamic worldview, and men have been affected by the Islamic worldview, which means that women will always be half the value of a man, second class, right? If
Right.
you go to court, you need 2 female testimonies. So I could go on, but women are not viewed as a full human being in the Middle East and in Iran. And the origin of that is from the Quran and from Islamic teachings. And unfortunately, even Christians in the region have been influenced by that. So we need to,
Interesting.
yeah, we need to help through education and reform and realize that, yes, men and women are different. We have different perspectives, different roles, especially in the family. But when you're out in real society, civil society, the business world, education, media, we need to give women equal access.
And I'm not sure I'm sure you've looked at it. The data that came out from Gammon Institute in 2000 and showed that Iranians, maybe 32% of Iranians, identify themselves as Shia Muslims. So the number has decreased significantly.
Yeah.
But I still assume there is some resistance. How do women respond when it comes to combative men, when they are resisting to the idea of women raising up to the leadership status and role?
Yeah, so you have to work backwards. So what we realize is if a man is resistant, it comes from a place of insecurity. He's trying to hang on to his authority and his family and the workplace and society. He's feeling threatened. So just like a mother with a child, when your child is feeling threatened or scared, you don't just go in there and attack them. You try to talk with them. You try to reason with them. You try to explain the data and the research and how things are shifting. And I think Iranians are catching on that, the Iranian women are so capable. And because of access to media and education, they are able to do so many great things for society in all the domains: science, sports, art, anything. So I think if we can help men bring down the temperature and help men realize that we want to be their ally and we want to collectively build society together, we can all prosper. It doesn't have to be men against women.
Yes. I have known you for many years, Shirin, starting from California, where our office was there, and then I've seen how you took a lot of young women under your wing, and you trained them, you led them, and you provided them with the tools to be able to tell their story. And I've seen you really working with them one-on-one, and really spend time with them to walk them through their this perspective change. Can you tell me about an example of Iranian woman whose life changed after she learned the media skills, and what changed, and how did media help her to have a bigger impact?
Yeah. Well, I have many stories to tell, but one story is a friend of mine, Sohar. She goes by Erica, and she is very connected in Washington, D.C., helping with religious freedom issues, really helping leaders to focus on Iran and to, how can we incentivize change? And we helped her produce a short film. And it was, how do you build social movements in Iran? How do you do this? And so she created a 5-minute short film. She helped us script it. She advised on the footage. We had, a videographer produce it, but she was there, it was her film. And it was so exciting to see how that opened so many doors for her. Eventually, she was able to speak in Germany at a parliament meeting. She advised in DC. And what we found is with media, it opens doors for women. It gives them a new platform. And so even if it's just 2 or 3 minutes, all of a sudden people think of you as a leader. Also, when you speak in public, you can show the film first. And then when you get on stage, people are like, oh, this is someone important. Look at what they produced. So it just gives you credibility. It gives you access. It expands your platform. You're seen as a thought leader. So media is really important to develop your leadership platform.
And I know, Shirin, you've been focusing also on trauma and healing, and we've done a project together, Healing of the Hearts, if I'm not mistaken, the name was, and you are very intentional to address these issues and help Iranian women to go through the challenges that they've been facing, depression, and all the problems that they have in a society. How do you change trauma healing methods for Iranian women who have been politically oppressed, sexually abused, and forced to leave their homes?
Yeah, well, trauma healing is essential, and we created a 10-episode series with you. We did workshops. We took Iranian women through different levels of trauma healing leadership certificate training, so they could share that through their networks, whether it's radio or TV or doing live events. But it's essential because if people don't understand how they've been wounded, they can never have freedom. The wounds are going to hold them down. And when you understand your own trauma, then when you feel it, you don't have to be overwhelmed. You can work through it. And so, yeah, we always try to address issues head on. We try to be very clear and direct and compassionate so people can live their full lives.
Shane, one of the challenges that I have as someone who lived most of his life in the West, working with a lot of Western ministries who have heart for the region, especially for Iran, and they pour the resources and they invest a lot of time and effort to make an impact on in the country of Iran. But sometimes we without having any ill intention, or I think by mistake and not knowingly, take away the control of the local people and leaders from them.
Yeah.
Now, you've seen the Women Life Freedom movement that has a lot of grassroots support in the country of Iran. Iranian women are waking up and they want to stand up for themselves, for the country, and let them know that they have a place in the society, and they're asking for freedom. They're asking for, a new era. How do we help as a Western organization, NGOs, anybody who has a heart for the country, to provide them with the help for their leadership without changing or taking over?
That's such a great question. We've been wrestling with that for years. And for me personally, I had to build trust with stakeholders, and I had to do the work we do again and again and again so they could see that it was actually viable and something good to invest in. But I think we're at a point now where we need to encourage the stakeholders and resource partners and investors to realize that the best investment is to allow people to lead for themselves. And so allow women to share their proposals and their projects, and empower them not only financially, but make sure they have the right tools and resources and a team to effectively implement those strategies. So we need to be direct, and that's what I do. That's what I've learned. I'll go to an event and I'll talk directly, oftentimes with men, and I'll say, this is the research, this is the data, and if you want to change Iran, you have to equip and mobilize and resource women. And you need to allow them to lead, to actually submit their own proposals and their own projects and empower them to go do the work. I love doing that. I'm older now, so I can kind of be more direct with my male colleagues, but it does require trust. So if you're a young woman and you're 25 or 30, you're going to need to probably find an older woman to come alongside you, or an older man, and help open doors for you and build that trust.
Very good. So we've been in the digital space for such a long time, Shirin, and we know it's like a double-edged sword. It gives you power and opportunity, and provides you with a chance to have a meaningful and lasting impact. But at the same time, it puts you in a very vulnerable situation, especially for the women of the country of Iran. They already are suffering because of the oppression and harassment and all that. But specifically, more particularly when they're on the social media realm, on a digital space, they are much more vulnerable. How do we help them? How do we protect them?
Yeah, that's a really hard one. And honestly, we are very careful. So I might repost something that someone created in Iran, but I personally don't ask women inside the country to do that. We would rather publish their articles or receive their content and maybe show it at events here in the US or in Europe or the Middle East. I've shown Iranian films even in Dubai and in Cairo and Morocco, and they love the Iranian films. And they always come to me, they say, we love Iranian women. They're so beautiful. And so they love to see our films and our content. So we kind of do it outside of Iran to protect people. But inside, it's still very dangerous. There's been, 12, 13, 1,400 executions. They're constantly looking, to target women. So we're very careful. If an Iranian woman contacted us, we would help her, but more on the sidelines, and look for safer ways to engage with her.
Let's take a quick pause. If today's conversation is resonating with you, here's why it matters. In this episode, you're hearing how short stories can shift culture, and how media skills can open doors for Iranian women to lead, heal, and influence change. At Heart for Iran, we're committed to amplifying stories that bring hope, strengthening leaders, and helping people walk through trauma towards freedom, wisely and safely. If you'd like to stand with this work through prayer or support, you can learn more at heartforiran.com. Now, let's jump back in.
And I want to point out something that it's really not being talked much on the media about, and that is sometimes when we talk about Islam and Muslims inside of the country, we all think radical Muslim, and that is not the case with Iranians. Iranians may be identifying themselves as Shiites. Even, as a matter of fact, as I mentioned, the percentage has decreased significantly.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of them inside the country that are not aligning themselves with these radical ideas or perspective towards women. And do you find a common ground with these Muslims who have a moderate view of women and their rights? Can we come along with them and work together and provide a situation and a society that is safe for women to rise up?
Yes, of course. I think there are Iranian movements that are already doing that. I have many friends who, they're not necessarily in the Christian space, they're more in the secular space, right? And together we're working with them and partnering with them to imagine a future where all Iranians can freely live inside Iran. We're trying to conceptualize a plan of action. How would that happen? In many ways, I think it'll be the business community, that will be leading that charge. People who can come to Iran and rebuild Iran and think about how we can serve the people. But there are many people waiting and excited to support Iran. But we need the movement to happen inside Iran, right? We can support them from outside, but the people have to demand the change inside. And I think we're seeing that. This next generation, like 35 and under, 40 and under, they're taking some huge risks that we didn't see 5, 10, 20 years ago. And so we're waiting to see, will that bubble up and become a tipping point? It hasn't become the tipping point yet. So we're waiting for that. And we think, as we encourage them from the sidelines, it could happen.
One of the challenges that we have when we work in Iran is it's a restricted country and it's very difficult to get numbers and metrics. Mm-hmm. And we do trust God that He will working through our efforts and make changes inside the country. But at the same time, it's encouraging for us to see that, to see a visible sign of growth. How do you know that we can do a good job in empowering women? What other metrics besides numbers and all that stats you use to measure the growth and the impact that you're having inside the country?
Yeah, no, we know it through personal stories and testimonials, and we're constantly watching online, any content coming out. And we just see something different now in this Gen Z, the millennial women. Mm-hmm. They are fierce. It's a little scary because you think, wow, we don't want them to become too Western, but we do want them to explore, whether it's music or art or going out in public and travel, and the things that these young women are doing now, riding motorcycles, and they're having outdoor concerts, and they're doing art, and so fashion, and we realize that's the way people express their freedom and their individuality. Yes. So that's how we see it. We're watching, like, what are they wearing on the streets? What kind of music are they listening to? What kind of photos are they posting? And as a mother, sometimes I'm like, be careful, but if the origin is to be free, then we want to encourage the freedom movement to keep going. And it will adjust over time. The young people will become parents someday, and they're going to make changes, but we want to continue that forward motion of freedom in Iran.
Amen. And Iran has changed so much. You were just mentioning these things. When I watch the videos that recently has captured the young Iranians, you see how different they are, yes, how open they are to change. It's not that a closed-minded Iran that I remember 40 years ago. Things have changed so much. You get that feeling as well?
Even the music, like listening to the music, like the beat and the way they create music, the way they dress. Yeah, and I think what's happening is that the youth culture around the world is tapping into each other, inspiring each other, making each other bolder. Their music is kind of sounding more similar. We don't want to lose that Iranianness, right? But there's something beautiful about maybe hearing Iranian music using a different melody, or seeing Iranian women dressing a little differently than 20, 30 years ago. And Iranian men, too, by the way. Very good dressers. But there's something happening, and I think it's showing this longing for freedom. And I hope the older generation will realize if you're a parent, this is what happens. Your children grow up and they want to individuate, which means they want to be individuals. They still want to honor their parents and their culture and their faith, but it's going to look different. It's going to look different.
And the reality is, for the Western audience to know as well, even though Iran is restricted nations, all the communication is being restricted and controlled, but there are ways. Young people find a way to connect with the outside world, to learn about the culture, and they're excited about learning other cultures. I've seen, as you mentioned, the music in Iran has changed so much. When you listen to the pop music in Iran, sometimes if they don't sing, you don't know this is Persia. That's how good that is. Or the videos and movies coming out. It's just amazing. And And it's an exchange of cultures. Just 2 weeks ago, our team over here, who are Westerners, they were singing and playing Iranian music.
Yes.
So it's beautiful to see that exchange is happening, and nothing can stop it.
Yes, I agree. In fact, we're going to a comedy night next week for an Iranian comedian, and it's so fun to hear, like, you hear the language, right? And you hear the stories, and he's making fun of his uncles and aunts and all that. But there's something different. He's very bold, and we want to support that. We want to support these new artists and these new people that are going to change the culture in a positive way towards freedom.
We didn't have stand-up comedy 30 years ago. We have stand-up comedy in Iran now.
Yeah.
And I watch those videos. It's like, that's not the Iran I don't know.
Exactly. And it makes
things
you
have
laugh
changed.
so hard. I just giggle.
Yes.
I giggle so much. And it's such a good feeling when Iranians can just pull from that pain and turn it into something fun and entertaining. It gives you hope for the future.
And going back again, the passion that you have in discipling and leading Iranian women, and as you know, and you've mentioned many times, and I've seen it in the way you perform, mentor and mentee, the relationship is very important. But again, referring back to this situation that Iran has, how does that translate to Iranian culture? How do you define that relationship that you have with the people who are learning from you?
Yeah. Well, I have a mother's heart, so I think as a mother, I'm always balancing, holding people's pain and having space for their reality of brokenness, leaving the country perhaps and not seeing their parents for 8 or 10 years. Or being a refugee and being educated and having to work at Walmart, all these difficult challenges that Iranians have overcome. But I always try to call out, what is your dream? What is your passion? What can we do together? Even if it's on a part-time basis. I've worked with girls who didn't even have a job. And I said, what can we do together? Let's make a short film. Let's do something to empower them and to dream for more. And many of those young women have gone on from coming as a refugee and, like I said, working at Walmart or whatever. And now they're, an accountant at a firm, or they're teaching at a university, or they got their counseling degree and they're a counselor, and they've gone on and built careers. So it's holding that space of their pain, but then like a mother calling them out to really pursue their dreams. And Iranians are so capable. They are. So we just have to have that vision and help them move into it.
And I hope there are a lot of people in the West who are excited and interested and passionate about supporting Iranian women to be leaders. And that is very exciting and encouraging to see that is happening. But what 3 specific responsible things would you suggest people, churches, small NGOs do to help empower Iranian women?
Well, one, they have to identify that women, I think, are the key to change in Iran, as we've seen through the Women Life Freedom movement. I mean, that's established. You can look at their record, and women are the key. We need men too, but if you're going to advance this movement, you have to tap into women. That's one. Number 2, you need to identify the women who are truly champions and advocates and have the energy, and the capacity to lead, because not all women have the energy and capacity. If someone's a young mother, she has less capacity, right? But the mother, like your wife, over time, their children get older and they have more time and more energy. So you have to identify the right women at the right season of their life. And then 3, you have to resource them. You have to say, how can we get behind you? You're a leader. You've been called. Okay, what do you need? And you don't write them a check, but you say, okay, can you write a proposal? What is your budget? How can we help you? And then you help move them forward, and you coach and mentor them until they have success and you can see the outcomes. So, and this is what we do in Empower Women Media is we call out the need for women's involvement. We train and equip women, and then we resource them. And we've done this again and again and again for over 10 years. And we've seen a lot of success. We've produced hundreds of short films. We've trained and equipped over 10,000 people in multiple countries through education certificate programs. We're convening events in, Dubai and Marrakesh and Tunis and Cairo and Beirut. Why? Because We've done the work. We've established trust and respect. And people want us to come now. And we're not just working with Iranians. We're working with the Arab world, the Middle East.
Yes.
And but they love the fact that I'm Iranian, which is interesting. Even the Arabs, they like that. They go, "Oh, you're Iranian American. We like that. We like the Iranian women." So there's something about being Iranian right now that's kind of cool, right? Because they know we've suffered so much and that we're still resilient, and they want to work with us.
Yes. In a couple of years ago, Shirin, it's an interesting experience for me. I had to go to a country where Iranian women, Iranian leaders of the house church leaders came out to spend a week with us to kind of teach them, to go through some training and all that. And to my surprise, 10 out of 12 leaders were women.
Ooh.
And these ladies, they were on fire for God. I mean, they were bold, they had opinions, and they were challenging. And again, it just shattered all the ideas and perspective I had. When I left Iran was not like this. Things are changing, especially after this movement. Iranian women are finding their voice.
Yes.
And I think it is time right now to stand next to Iranian women and let them know that you got it. My wife is my boss when I'm at home, but there are a lot of people that are leaders inside the country, and they can stand up for the society and take us to the next level.
Yes.
We need to realize that.
I agree. And it's biblical, because if you look at the Old Testament and when you think about Adam and Eve, the word used for Eve was the word Ezer. Ezer means not just helper, but co-warrior. It's also the word used for Holy Spirit. And I think when we allow women to fully, participate and fully use their gifting, you'll see they are the Ezer. We still need men at the helm and leading, because men we're just different. But yet women are the co-warriors. And if you don't have a co-warrior, you're going to battle alone. And also there's other research in peace and security. And this is the research that the United Nations and state departments look at. And is if you're serious about establishing a peace plan, you send women first. You put women at the negotiating table, because women can negotiate peace better sometimes than men. And men kind of act different when women are in the room. If you're in a boardroom and you've got 10 men, they're all just kind of, just talking with their men talk, right? You bring a woman into the room and the men all of a sudden are like, gentlemen. They're more civil.
Yes.
They're more respectful. They're listening because there's a woman in the room. It reminds them of their mother, maybe, or their sister. So I think we need the church in Iran, and the church in the Middle East needs to think about empowering women and even giving them leadership roles, leadership titles, and allowing them to go in and open new doors that haven't been opened before, to go negotiate with really difficult people in ways that haven't been before. And then finally, women are outpacing men in education. More girls are enrolling in the university, and there's even research saying that women could potentially out-earn men someday. So I've told my daughter, you might earn more income than your husband, but you still need to respect him. You need to make sure that he has an equal voice in the home. You need to listen to him and his perspective. Society is shifting right now, and we don't know where this is going. My hope is that men and women will always have equal status, and that we will always allow men to flourish, that we won't bring men down, because then you have a whole nother set of problems. But there is a shift going on, and Iran needs to be very cognizant. It needs to recognize these shifts that are happening globally.
I'm very thankful for you and the ministry that you're involved in, and the impact you're having in the region, especially in Iran. And I believe this change, you're going to see the fruits of your labor. You're going to see Iran changing, women standing up, and the churches are being led by women. And this is amazing. And I want to thank you again for not only doing what you do in the ministry, but also for accepting an invitation, being on Unmuted podcast.
Thank you, Edwin. It's a pleasure. And I respect your leadership so much. It's so fun that we've known each other these years, and that we're in different capacities and roles, but we're mutually on the battlefield together and striving for peace. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Shirin. Thank you for being with us today, Shirin. Your story and the work you're doing with Empower Women Media show us that faith and creativity can break down walls that seemed impossible to break. You've shown us how telling stories can be a way to lead, heal, and be brave. And thank you for listening to Unmuted. Please tell a friend, a coworker, or someone who believes that faith and freedom still matters about this episode if it inspired you. We at Unmuted are giving voice to conversations others aren't having. These are stories of faith, justice, and change from all over the Persian world and beyond. Stay with us as we keep talking to guests who are shaping the future and how faith, identity, and hope can come together. Visit www.heartforyourrun.com to see what we have been up to, get more resources, and find out about future episodes. Do not forget to subscribe so you do not miss anything. Until next time, keep listening, keep questioning, and keep your voice unmuted.